Hey, y'all, I'm Bud Elliott, and this is Cover 3 College Football Summer School. We've done our research on the teams, and now we're bringing on the top team experts from the 24/7 Sports Network to help us fill in the blanks. Please follow us on Twitter at Cover 3 Podcast. That's Cover 3 Podcast. And leave us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. All right, class is in session. Hey, guys, I'm Bud Elliott, and welcome back to the Cover 3 College Football Podcast. This is another edition of our Summer School series, and today we are going to talk about Iowa, a team we talked about quite a bit on Cover 3 last year. And to help us break it all down, we're going to bring on David Eickholt of HawkeyeInsider and, of course, the Swarmcast on the 24/7 Sports Network. David, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Bud. Always good to be chatting it up with you. Appreciate you having me on.
No doubt about it. This was an interesting team to follow last year. I had them 30th in my final power ratings, and yet they went 10-4. Close game against Kentucky there in the bowl game, and just some almost unbelievably wild splits between strengths and weaknesses. I assume most folks were pretty happy with the season they had last year.
I think so, but at the same time, it's also the big what-if scenario, because you look at Iowa's elite defense, their turnover numbers were ridiculous, broke a school record. Iowa's special teams, probably among the top 5 in the country. Torrey Taylor, outstanding punter. Caleb Shudak was an outstanding kicker for them. Then Charlie Jones, the Big Ten returner of the year. When you combine all of those things, I think Iowa fans were more so begging for, give me a top 75 offense. And I think you go from a 10-win team to an 11-12-win caliber team. And, at the end of the day, the offense didn't put up the production it needed against Michigan, especially against Kentucky as well. And there's a lot of pressure on this Iowa offense next season, especially when you consider everybody they have coming back, and Iowa essentially doubling down with Brian Ferentz. Not only is he the offensive coordinator, they've also moved him to quarterbacks coach. And with all the criticism and the noise surrounding him, it's only going to get louder. I think they need improvement, and not just improvement. They need immediate improvement on September 3rd to justify the move with Brian to quarterbacks.
Long time ago, early in my media career, I covered a team in which a legendary coach at a school had his son be the offensive coordinator, Bobby Bowden and Jeff Bowden. And ultimately that led to this sort of short-term messy divorce that they had in 2007. So, if it doesn't go well and you make your son the OC, it's going to go like doubly bad, because people are going to look at it as nepotism, whether or not he was quality or not. And last year he was decidedly not quality. 94th in the country. I think this is the 55th episode I've done of Summer School. And I don't think I've seen any team have a split of 94th on offense and 4th on defense. I mean, it really does feel like a wasted opportunity. And I mean, Spencer Petrich's numbers look like somebody won some kind of lottery from the student section just to come around and throw some passes. This is I know Iowa punched the ball a lot. In some cases, they were better just punting the ball on first down. I mean, a success rate under 40% throwing the ball, 10-9 touchdown interception ratio, adjusted net yards per attempt under 5. That's like Temple bad.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say here.
There's no real segue with it, right? And at the end of the day, Spencer Petras is probably going to be a starter September 3rd, unless Iowa for some reason brings in a transfer quarterback. I would like Gary Bohannon from Baylor being a grad transfer. I think that move would make a lot of sense on a lot of fronts. Do I expect them to go after him? No. But, Petras being a third-year starter, and you look at the numbers last year, yeah, he dealt with some injuries. He's throwing Alex Padilla. He flashed at some moments, but again, you look at the numbers, they aren't there. I mean, Bud, Iowa had 2 passing touchdowns on October 9th, right? They didn't have another passing touchdown until the bowl game against Kentucky, where they had 2. So they went a span from October 9th to New Year's Day with 0 passing touchdowns. So the fact that they somehow won 10 games in the Big Ten without a passing offense, it's pretty remarkable. And like I said, I think that there's so much pressure on Petras to really, stand out and perform. He's lost some weight, which improved his mobility a little bit. Losing Linderbaum is obviously massive, but I do think that Iowa's offensive line is going to take a step forward next year. And then you get Keegan Johnson, Arlen Bruce, who I think will be 2 pretty capable receivers. I'm very high on Keegan Johnson, former 4-star by 24/7 Sports. Sam Laporta, I think, could be a first-team All-Big Ten caliber tight end with his numbers he put up last year. So, again, the pieces are in place. It really is going to come down to quarterback play for Iowa.
I was going to say, I mean, they oftentimes run the ball so often on first and second down, and like the most friendly downs to throw on are the downs that people think you're going to run. And so if they would open it up a little bit and chuck the ball around, I know it's weird to be advocating for throwing the ball more early downs with the guy you said just looks like he came out of the stands to chuck a few around, like you said before we started recording, almost the Dr. Pepper challenge look going on there. But they ran the ball so much with Tyler Goodson. His actually per carry numbers were kind of bad. I mean, he was stuffed 2 yards or less 27% of the time. Success rate under 40%.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's an ability thing. I think he's a good ability back. I just think teams know they're going to run it so much that they load up against it.
I think it's a combination of that, and I think it's a combination of what was a young offensive line. You had Connor Colby, who was a true freshman All-American by 24/7 Sports. I think he's got a very bright future. Mason Richmond was a redshirt freshman, played mostly defensive line in high school. Iowa flipped him to offensive line. I think he has a high ceiling. And Iowa just had struggles, especially at right tackle with Jack Plum and Nick DeYoung. I mean, they really got to lock that down. I would like to see David Eickholt make a push for that starting spot. I think he's the number 2 right now in that spot. Again, former All-American, high 4-star by 24/7 Sports, chose Iowa over Michigan, Ohio State. One of the most impressive offensive line reels I think I've ever watched from an Iowa lineman. So I think if you get him in swing, you have George Barnett for a second year, who is a proven offensive line coach. I think there'll be some growing pains at center, but I do think with the line's ability to be better, I think with Gavin Williams and LaShawn Williams, they're more north-south backs, where Tyler Goodson was more of, I'm going to go outside. I'm going to try to make something happen in the open field. And like you said, I don't think last season's Goodson numbers were an indictment on him. I think Iowa's offensive line just cannot compete with some of the defensive lines. So Goodson would have to, okay, the hole's not there. I'm going to try to bounce it outside, make something happen. And there'd be times he wouldn't even get to the line of scrimmage before there were 1 or 2 guys from the defense that were in that backfield. So again, there's a lot of things that need tweaking, but I still like the overall potential and ability, especially when you look at the names that they have across and the potential that Iowa has.
So you're of the opinion that the continued development, thanks to increased experience with the offensive line, will offset the loss of Linderbaum?
I think so. And I'm also very high on Logan Jones, who, again, is a former All-American defensive tackle. Iowa flipped him off to center this spring. Number 65, has broken numerous Iowa strength records, and he's obviously an athletic freak. And, when you look at the success of Linderbaum, it's kind of unfair to try to throw Logan Jones what he could be. But when you look at the experiment that Iowa's already done with him and the praise that I've heard surrounding his camp and spring, I would be very surprised if he does not go in and have a very good first season at center. He's just got too much point of attack, too much physicality, too much strength.
It sounds like you're optimistic this is not the 94th offense in the country again. I think that's almost impossible to repeat that, I would think. Mm-hmm. What's the ceiling for this offense?
I mean, it's not one of those things where I'm going to, be blowing whistles and waving the flag saying, hey, they're going to be a top 25, top 30 offense. That's unrealistic. But I do think that Iowa can take steps. If they can just get in the top 75, top 80, Bud, and they have the same defense and special teams as last year, I mean, I think you're looking at a 9-win team. I think the schedule's a lot tougher. You go Ohio State, you go Michigan. So I think that's going to pose a problem. But I also think that it would shock me if Iowa drops both against Michigan and Ohio State. Iowa just finds a way to upset one team a year that they shouldn't upset. And I think when you look at the returning experience, there's going to be a lot, especially that Michigan game. I think there's going to be a lot of hype about that. I think the players are going to go in with a huge chip on their shoulder. And again, Iowa loses Jack Kerner, who is a very good safety. They lose Matt Hankins, they lose Dane Bellin. Xavier Wampa is going to go in. He's going to play right away. I think he was the best safety in the country. He's up 15 pounds in spring ball from when he arrived on campus. Iowa's defensive line is going to be significantly better. The sack numbers weren't there and the pass rush wasn't there, but they were so gap sound that it frustrated opposing quarterbacks trying to just make some things happen, which is why the interception numbers were so high. So I'll go 9-10 wins, and depending on how the rest of the division shakes up, I do think that Iowa should be at least picked near the top to repeat in the Big Ten West. I think there's just too much experience, and I think that there's a big chip on their shoulder after the way last season ended.
One thing I do like is the early road games are teams that you should be favored over. Like, they won't be double digits at Illinois, but they'll be favored at Illinois. They'll certainly be favored at Rutgers. So at least, I mean, at Ohio State, I don't think anybody expects you to win. I mean, certainly Iowa usually plays them tough.
Ohio State also wants revenge from 2017 because, right, Iowa has not stopped the whole 55-24 thing since that happened. So that they're, while that's way in the past, they're going to go in looking, trying to beat Iowa by 40, 50 points.
Yeah, exactly. Defensive line, you are expecting a lot of improvement there, as you noted. Their top guy is gone, but their remaining 11 guys who played like at least some snaps last year all return. All the linebackers are back. I mean, the front seven here should be nasty. In the secondary, you think they can avoid a drop off, or at least a big one?
I think they'll avoid a big drop off. I think it was a huge boost when Riley Moss, Big Ten Defensive Back of the Year, ended up coming back. I'm still of the opinion where if he didn't get hurt, I think he's at least a finalist to the Jim Thorpe Award. I mean, he was just having an outstanding season. I think he's going to be one of the preseason favorites for it. Kayvon Merriweather is a guy who I've been extremely high on since he got to campus. Uber freak athletically, is a late scholarship offer. And at the end of the day, when you look at Iowa's interception numbers since 2017, 85, which is, I believe, the most in college football, and you have Phil Parker back there, you're going to have a tough time convincing me there's going to be a significant drop-off. And Cooper DeJean, former All-American as well, is probably going to start at that cash position and take over where Dane Belton was last year. Then you get Terry Roberts, Jamari Harris at the opposite corner, who I thought had two pretty good seasons last year. And while Quinn Schulte will probably start at the opposite safety, I mean, Xavier Wampa's got too much talent, too much size, too much athleticism. You have to find a way to put him on the field. And at the end of the day, he's a winner, especially when you look back at late in his high school career, just made game-winning plays. Iowa needs that.
He's a difference maker for sure. And typically when Iowa gets the guys that are a little higher than they normally get, they usually work out. Like it seems like Iowa's targeted them, and they eval them for the culture fit as well. Speaking of culture and whatnot, have you seen anything different culture-wise or strength program-wise since Chris Doyle left?
I think guys are a lot more comfortable. I mean, the term that was thrown around a lot when the allegations were first coming to light was walking on eggshells. I think there's a lot more comfort in the locker room. I think there's a lot more comfort, especially in the strength and conditioning program. And it really wasn't so much of a change of philosophy, because the guy who took over, Raymond Braithwaite, worked under Doyle for more than a decade. So guys were already used to the way he ran things, but it's just a change of philosophy. I think Iowa's done away with some of their more strict policies regarding hair, tattoos, getting, their sleep monitored and all that other stuff. They really loosen that up. They loosen up the music choice in the locker room and weight room, which again, sounds like such minor details, but it's such a big culture thing, I think, for everybody involved. And I think you look at the bond of this team, I think the way they've rallied since then, I've always said one of the most important games of the Kirk Ferentz era was that game in 2020 against Michigan State. After Iowa dropped back-to-back games, I think if they lose that game, I really do believe that Iowa football goes off the rails and that season's lost, because there was so much riding on that game. But right when they went in there, and I can't remember the final score, but Iowa just beat the living heck out of Michigan State. I think it really changed the tide of everything, got everybody sort of rejuvenated. And from all accounts I've heard, there have been significant improvements on and off the field. And I think, again, guys are a lot more comfortable. You're seeing a lot more, I think, players of color being elevated to leadership positions. And, at the end of the day, too, it was extremely important. It was pointed out. But I also think, I know there's the lawsuit going on with Kirk Ferentz it was in reference to that to some degree. I do think it's worth noting that there have been an overwhelming amount of former players that have come to Kirk's defense, and every current player has basically said Kirk's not the problem. And I think, with how serious these allegations have been and just, everything like that, I think it is worth pointing out that while Kirk is the head man of the ship, I think it goes deeper than that. And I think not that Kirk's scot-free from everything, but I do think it does say something that there's been the overwhelming majority.
A lot of guys support him, no doubt. A whole bunch. Last one I have for you here. So Iowa, since they play so many close games, and because they do seem to not really want to go for it on fourth down very much, they have a lot of punting, like a lot more punting and kicking situations than most teams do. I mean, they kicked, almost 30 field goals last year.
Field goals, yeah.
But they kicked them really well. Like their kicker was Caleb Shudak was a stud, and his kickoffs were tremendous. I mean, he was touchback percentage, I think, was 65, which is just incredibly good. Starting field position to give your defense, and they pretty much could count on getting those 3 points whenever he went up there to kick. But he's gone. What does it look like at the kicker spot? Normally, I don't ask about kicker, but I felt like for Iowa, it kind of is important.
I think Iowa fans have been so accustomed to greatness as far as the kicking game goes that this is going to be a big change in philosophy. I think you look at Keith Duncan, who was the all Big Ten, all-decade kicker. You look at Miguel Recinos, who was solid. Caleb Shudak. Then you have 3 guys now that have never kicked in a college game. And I think that that's going to be a huge thing. And LeVar Woods, the Iowa special teams coordinator, who I do believe could be the next Iowa football head coach. I want to throw that out there right now with the way he fits in with everything. He just said, look, the standard's the standard right now. We expect these guys, whoever wins the battle, to go in and they have to perform up to expectations. And I think LeVar Woods does a great job of coaching his guys up. But, at the end of the day, Bud, while it's important to get those points on the board, the kicking situation is shaky right now. Iowa's red zone offense, I think, has been one of their biggest problems over the past couple of seasons. They need to find that big red zone target. I think Brody Brecht at wide receiver could be that guy. I think Luke Lachey at tight end, who's, again, an athletic freak, could be that guy along with Sam Laporta. Iowa's got to be able to run the ball for 4 or 5 yards carry. They can't afford these, bounce outside, get 8 yards. Okay, then they're stopped, 2 straight times behind the line of scrimmage. So Iowa's red zone offense has to be better, especially with the way the kicking game goes right now. I think it's impossible to really believe that Iowa's kicking is going to be the same as it has been the past few years. And based on the one spring practice we saw, Iowa might be going for it a lot more on 4th down, or if they don't want to do that and they don't have the confidence to do that, you might be seeing Spencer Petras or Torrey Taylor punting from the 35-yard line to try to pin them back inside the 5.
Full squib kick. Yeah.
It'll be interesting. And honestly, a pretty big story to monitor as fall camp goes forward.
Awesome. David, really appreciate it. Hawkeye Insider is the spot to be. Also on the Swarmcast. We'll have to have you back on. Come fall. This is great as always. And we'll be staying tuned to y'all's coverage.
Hey, I appreciate you, Bud. Take care, man.
All right. That's the bell. Cover 3 college football summer school is over for today. But don't worry. We'll be back soon with even more episodes filling you in on the top teams in college football. Please give us those 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Follow us on YouTube and on Twitter at Cover 3 Podcast. And we'll see y'all soon.